The Republican Zone is brought to you by Drew Murray, a modern view from the Republican lens, covering local and national news, understanding that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to politics. The Republican Zone airs Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. and Saturday from 3 to 4 p.m.
Good afternoon. You're listening to USLA Radio and the Republican Zone. I'm your host, Drew Murray. I'm here with my good friend, Fareed Abdullah. Fareed, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So Fareed and I have been friends for, I guess, about a year and a half now. We met on our city council run. So when you run for city council, you literally have 3 or 4 events a night. So I would, there was times I would see Fareed, a few times a week, and we became good friends. And then, and even have Fareed, he's been on my show before. So,
Yes.
And Fareed has most recently we both ran for state rep, obviously in different races. Fareed ran in the 198th, correct?
Yes, 198th.
And you came in third, but it was such a close race. I mean, what did you lose by? Was it like 30 votes or something?
I believe it was 200 votes.
Oh, okay. So it closed up a little bit, but it was still,
Yes.
There was 4 of you, and I think you were all had, between 20 and 30%.
Absolutely.
And it
Yes.
was, and who ended up winning that race? Was it
Darisha Parker?
Oh, she did. That's right. She was out of the 4. She was in last the whole time, and then
she was last for pretty much the a week and a half, and then the mail-in ballots came in, and miraculously she jumped to the top.
Wow. So that's right. So I do, and it was a primary. So
Yes.
that means they did have the mail-ins, and it was during COVID. So
Yes.
So wow, yeah, she did come from last. Well, you're not contesting the election like the president, right? You took.
Well, I mean, of course, people, were trying to get me to go there. I said, no, I'm not going to contest it. I didn't want to do it.
Sure. So no, that was I remember watching that, and there was
Yes.
4 of you, and it was just so close the entire time. And of course, I was pulling for you, but
I know. Thank you.
You were unsuccessful there, but I'm sure you're gonna be successful in your next one, whatever your next one is. I'm sure.
Thank you. You too, Drew.
Thank you. So I asked Fareed to come on to talk about a difficult subject. And it's the shooting of Walter Wallace Jr. And I'll say before we even start, Fareed and I have completely different views on this topic.
Yes.
We both watched the video, and we come to, I don't know if I would say the opposite conclusion, but our conclusions are very different. And
Yeah.
I like to bring, number one, Fareed's my friend, I like to bring people on the show who don't agree with me. If for no other reason, I want people to see and understand that you can have a discussion, even though you don't agree with each other, and you don't have to yell at each other. You don't have to think the other person's a bad person. And, Fareed and I, we've been friends for a year and a half. We're friends
Yes.
before the show started. We'll be friends during the show, even if we disagree.
Absolutely.
And after the show, we're still going to be friends.
Absolutely.
So let's get started on this topic. So another reason I wanted Fareed on the show was because Fareed is the one who, before I saw the news, and obviously the entire world saw this news, and unfortunately saw the horrific shooting of Walter Wallace Jr. No matter which side you fall on, it was hard to watch that video. So
Absolutely.
Fareed, yeah, you were the first one. I don't know where you got the video, but you put it on Facebook, so I watched it.
Yes.
And I watched the whole thing, and I watched it over and over again, to be honest with you, because the first time I watched it, I was like, wow, that's horrible, but I wanted more information. So how did a friend send you the video? You had the video before the news outlets had the video.
So there was a video circulating of a gentleman who was actually at the scene. He was sitting in his car, and once that video started to circulate, I automatically took that video and went live on Facebook and also on Instagram. So some people thought that it was I was the person that was at the scene, but I was just quick to grab that video and push it out there. So that's that was the beginning of telling the story that I'm sure you're going to, get into details about.
Sure. No, and I watched it, and I forget if you commented or someone who was following you on Facebook
Mhm.
commented. But one of the first things that someone said, and again, I forget if it, and you can tell me if it was you or someone else, was where was the taser? Why did they not use non-lethal force to stop Mr. Wallace? And I can't remember if that was you, but so the first thing I did was I started Googling. Tried to do some research. It's to see what I could find out about tasers and
Yeah.
uh, and their effects and how often they work. And actually the first thing I Googled is, do all police officers in the city of Philadelphia carry tasers? And I couldn't find that answer. But what I did find out was, tasers only work, I think it was 2/3 of the time, uh, which sounds like a good percentage. But when you're in a life and death situation, it's that's not a good percentage. But the police didn't have tasers. In this instance, the police didn't have tasers anyway. So,
Absolutely.
before we go forward, that the police in this instance didn't have tasers.
They didn't have tasers, yes.
And there's a few reasons probably why they don't have tasers, and we can kind of get into this as well, because we'll talk about Mr. Wallace's shooting, but we should probably also just go into police relations in general, the defunding of the police, that movement. But one of the reasons the police officers in Philadelphia do not have tasers, that they don't all have them, is because they didn't have the funding for them.
Allegedly.
Yes. Well, they don't, and their budget was cut, right? Or
Yes.
and look, a lot of budgets were cut because of COVID, but I would argue that the police budget was cut because of the defund movement in the city of Philadelphia. But
Okay.
we can go back to that. But so I do want to kind of keep on Mr. Wallace Jr.'s
Yes.
shooting. So I'll give my take, and we already, Fareed and I already know what each other think about this, because
Yes.
well, the one thing that happened was I posted on Facebook because Representative Brian Sims, I had posted on it originally saying that I thought it was a justified shooting, and then I posted again in a little more detail when Representative Brian Sims posted on Facebook and Twitter, basically saying it was murder, and look, everyone has their opinions, but Representative Brian Sims really put a bullseye on the backs of every police officer in the city of Philadelphia, the way he pushed the information out. And again, he saw probably very similar to what Fareed saw, but Fareed's messaging was much different than Representative Brian Sims. So I posted what Brian posted. I reposted and said, this is not basically the way to communicate, and this is not how a representative should communicate this. But
Mhm.
my take on it was this: I saw Mr. Wallace Jr. He had a knife, and I know Fareed might have more information on what type of knife it was, but I saw a man with a knife. Obviously, possibly very well having a mental health crisis, and we did find out more after that. But when I originally watched it, I saw a man being held back by what turned out to be his mother, and I saw a man going toward the police. And so I posted on Facebook, and some of my police officer friends posted kind of explaining, how the police are trained, and it really just reaffirmed what I saw. What I saw was a man going toward the police, and the police taking action that they were trained to do, and in my opinion, had no other choice to do. And I'll kind of go real quick, Fareed, and then I want you to tell me what
Okay.
what you think.
Okay.
There's friends of mine who are police officers. Number one said, you're not, even if they had tasers, you don't use a taser when lethal force is coming upon you. And number two, there's a 21-foot rule, and that 21-foot rule doesn't come into play if someone has a gun. It only comes into play if someone has something like a knife. But within 21 feet, someone who is looking to hurt you is on top of you in like 1 second. So oftentimes within 21 feet, you don't have any other choice but to use lethal force. So everything that I saw in the video and reaffirmed, in my opinion, by my police officer friends was that it was a justified shooting. Now, I understand Mr. Wallace Jr. had mental health issues. So no matter what, it's a tragedy that he was shot and killed. I just don't think it was the police officer's fault. But, now to the alternate opinion, not the alternate, Fareed's opinion, because again, we already know it's different. But
Yeah.
let's talk about and the reason I like to do this is we get to see other people's point of view, and we can start to understand that even though if we don't see the same thing, and I will tell you right now, Fareed's not going to change my opinion, and I'm not changing Fareed's opinion, and we can
Exactly.
have a difference of opinion and still be friends at the end of the day. So,
Absolutely.
what did you see, Fareed, and when you watched
So,
that video?
So watching the video, and not just watching the video, I actually went to the residence where Mr. Wallace was gunned down by the police officers that arrived at the scene. Of course, I'm not an attorney, you know, but I'm speaking from my perspective of what continues to happen throughout this country when it comes from the hands of some police officers who justifies the shooting of black men and black women. But what I saw in that video was a young man who was being held by his mother to hold him back. And before I even get into that, this was the third time that the police came to the residence of Mr. Wallace. They already knew the situation. They knew that he had mental illness. The mother was trying to get him 302. So the third time they came, he had a butter knife on him. I did not see him running towards them. I saw him walking towards the police officers. I saw the police officers giving themselves distance to back away. What I believe could have happened when we've seen in different videos where white men were attacking police officers. The police officers, I saw one video where a police officer ran away from the perpetrator, and I believe that there were more police officers that were already arriving at the scene. The police officers did not have tasers. However, they could have continued to back away and not use lethal force. But even if they were going to use the lethal force, and they did, they could have shot him in the leg. And I heard you, Drew, that you said with the tasers, 2/3 of the time that they work. However, a gunshot to the leg would have from moving forward. However, that wasn't the case. There were more than 8 shots from both police officers that entered the body of Mr. Wallace. So I believe that it was a murder. A lot of people believe it. However, it has quieted down because the parents are not going through with it. But this is something that continues to happen in the inner cities throughout America, and not just the inner cities. Where we see police officers using excessive force on black men and now black women, and these issues need to be addressed, especially when it comes to police reform. So that's what I saw. Of course, me and you had a conversation about it. I guess a day or two after the situation.
Yes.
And I respected your perspective, and you respected mine. However, I do believe that it was with the intent to kill him.
Sure. Now, you know what I forgot to say? One thing I think some maybe advice I can give to everyone out there. Fareed, I posted, Fareed came on and said, Drew, you're my friend, but you're wrong. And
Yes.
I immediately responded to Fareed, I'll give you a call, because
Yes.
Facebook is not a place to have a debate oftentimes with friends. A lot of people. I don't know about you, Fareed. I have 5,000 Facebook friends. I don't know 4,000 of them. It's just when you run for office, you get a lot of friend requests, and you try to accept as many as possible. I mean, obviously,
Absolutely.
if I see someone who's a blatant racist, and I've seen that. There was one guy, I give an example. The guy had a Confederate flag as his profile picture. So I did not accept his friendship, but
Okay.
you accept a lot of friendships of people you don't necessarily know. But
Exactly.
and so you do debate with people you don't know. But the one thing I was like, Fareed, we're taking this offline, because the Facebook's a horrible place to debate, because
Absolutely.
things get lost in translation. You could say something that you feel like sounds benign, and if you said it to someone in person or even over the phone, it's understood as benign, but sometimes over
Absolutely.
Facebook, it sounds like, oh, you're coming at me. So we pulled it offline eventually. And we talked for like an hour,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and again, we disagreed. So the one
Yes.
thing, and again, I am not, and I said this when I posted, I'm not a police expert, and that's why, one of the things, and not that Googling anything makes you an expert, but when I heard a few things, I did a little bit of research, but I also talked to my police officer friends, and so you mentioned why did they shoot him in the leg, and I thought the same thing. And one of the things that was said was, number one, there were a lot of people around, and shooting someone in the legs is not as easy as it seems, especially in a situation that is evolving as quickly as that situation did. Because if you miss, two things can happen. Number one, you could hit someone else.
But Drew,
Yep.
I don't mean to cut you off. Drew,
Sure. No, it's fine.
say it again. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I said that. You can cut me off. That's fine.
Drew, no. When Mr. Wallace walked around that van, I'm sorry, the SUV, he was by himself. His mother wasn't even within what feet? I mean, what 10 feet from him? She didn't even make it around the car yet. So if they would have shot him in the leg, they would not have missed. These are trained professionals, and we know that police officers, they go through what 3 months of police academy, learning how to shoot, learning how to diffuse situations. I mean, I hear you, and I guess this is another part where we disagree. To say, okay, well, we could have shot someone else. Well, what about if they would have missed from shooting him in the chest and everywhere else they shot him and shot someone else?
So I think, and when you talk to a police officer, that's what they'll say. They're trained to shoot in the chest because they're much less likely to miss. And I don't think his mother was in the way. No, I agree with you there that his mother she was well behind him. But I guess what they're trained to do is to not do that, especially when in situations where there are other people around. I don't think it was his mother behind him, and I don't know if there was anyone behind him. And I don't think you can tell from the video. But no, it wasn't that I thought they could shoot his mother. It just they could have shot another neighbor, another bystander. That's what I was saying, not his mother. But
no one was there. No one. The people that were on that block during that time, they were. You heard people yelling, like trying to calm them down. But I can rest assured other people were afraid once those guns were drawn. A lot of black people, they know, like, hold on, this could be me getting shot.
Sure.
So a lot of people during that time were saying, well, why didn't the other people try to grab him and things like that? The fear that might go through some people's mind is that I'm not trying to get shot also. So, the mother, yes, you saw it even when after the shooting, the mother didn't even care. She whatever she threw at him, it was like throwing a fist or something like out of hurt. And you saw the police backing away, putting the gun up. And I don't know if you saw in the video that one of the police officers did have a taser. Now I don't know if that was the same police officers that responded, but there were pictures going around of one of the police officers having a taser on.
Yeah, when I looked, I couldn't find a taser. Now,
okay.
But I think it also goes back to the training. And so let me ask you a question. Do you think the two officers acted in a way that they were not trained to do? So is your issue more that the officers did something they weren't trained to do, or is your issue more with how police officers are trained to react to a situation? Does that make sense?
I love the trick question.
No, not at all.
It's a trick, but I'm going to answer it because it's kind of sounding the same. I believe that it's about compassion, and I believe that yes, the officers are trained to do exactly what they did when they feel that their lives are in danger. However, there is something called being compassionate and understanding the situation, and also as a human being, knowing how to diffuse a situation. It was two of them at that time against one person who had a butter knife. I strongly believe that they had mace on them. They had their sticks, their baton sticks. They could have taken that out and surrounded him or kept on backing away until another officer comes with a taser. So that's the moral side of everything. But yeah, they did exactly what they were trained to do.
No, and I would agree with you. And part of what I heard was, number one, they may or may not have had tasers. I don't think they did. But let's just say, for argument's sake, they didn't. So then, what are they trained to do in that situation? Number one, there's the 20, and I didn't know any of this. This is a police officer friend of mine was posting, and you may have even read some of it. It's the 21 foot rule. When they're within 21 feet, with the weapon, and again, not a gun, because you can shoot someone with a gun from much further than 21 feet. When you're within 21 feet, that person can kill you within a second. And when they do shoot, they are trained. They're not trained to shoot in the leg. Now, maybe we should rethink that. I don't know. I'm not a police officer.
I think so.
But so even if we thought, how can I say this? So is the underlying issue here? There's a few, but is the underlying issue, I guess, is that they're trained incorrectly? Should they not be trained to? I think once they shoot, I think they're taught to shoot to kill.
I think it's racial.
So, but do you think but if the person, and I know in this situation you think it would be different if it was white, but I think in a situation,
Absolutely.
if it was lethal, but let's say they were in 5 feet. I think whether someone is black, white, or Asian or anything, once they shoot, I believe they are taught to shoot the body, the body, to take them down. Maybe not to kill. I think, and as you saw, the police officers, first thing they did, I don't think those police officers wanted to shoot anybody. They grabbed them, they put them in the car. They did fear for their lives.
When did they do that, Drew?
They jumped. No, they grabbed him immediately and brought him in the car.
They
and
shot
put him
him?
in the ambulance. Yeah, no, they did.
Yeah, he was already dead.
But they put him in. They brought him in, and they brought him in their car to the hospital.
Drew, but he was gone already. How much of a threat can someone be if you have 12 bullet holes in you? So that was, they diffused the situation by killing him.
Sure. No, I understand what you're saying there.
That's like if a pit bull's attacking you and you're like, oh my God, let me shoot the pit bull, and then you put him in the car and take him to the hospital or the vet. The pit bull is no longer a threat. Or you could say, you know what, I'm not going to shoot the pit bull and jump on top of a car, because the pit bull can't jump on top of this car.
But
it's
I think
choices.
If you look in this, in the world we live in now, those police officers went into that situation. The last thing, and I believe this in my heart, the last thing they ever want to do, was shoot Mr. Wallace, for many reasons. Number one, I don't think they wanted to kill somebody, but they also, their lives, and obviously they weren't killed, but their lives are affected drastically.
How do you know this though, Drew?
Because I know I've never killed someone, but
But you're not racist either.
But you don't know if they're racist.
I understand that.
So do you think? So that's a good question. Do you think those police officers?
Racial. It seemed to be racial.
Well, I'd say there's probably even a difference between that being a racial situation, the cops handling it differently because the man was black, and the cops being flat out racist.
I just,
do you know what I'm saying? And that sounds a little. I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly.
I know it sounds far-fetched. However, if the shoe was on, say if this was in Center City and it was a white man, do you really think that two black police officers would have shot and killed a white man coming at them with a knife, a butter knife?
I do.
No way.
I do think so. And I will say, look, I'm a white man and you're a black man. I have never walked in a black man's shoes in my life. And I know you deal with things that I've never dealt with in my life. I hate the word white. I hate the phrase white privilege, but I understand what it's trying to communicate. And I agree with a lot of what it's going to.
Do you believe that is white privilege?
I don't like the term, Fareed. I think
but Drew, do you believe that it exists?
I believe that as a white man, there are less barriers to entry and a lot of opportunities because
Which
I'm
is
a
privilege.
white man. If that makes sense, I just hate privilege. And we're kind of going off topic, which is totally fine.
Okay.
Privilege kind of you're kind of saying that someone didn't earn what they deserve in life. Meaning, Drew, you're a white man. Where you are today with your family and where you are in your career. You didn't earn that. And privilege kind of that term kind of assumes that.
Okay. And I don't want to get off topic.
Yeah, no,
but
and we can.
Let me
No,
just
that's-
respond to that,
Yeah,
Drew.
sure.
Privilege is when it is more likely for a white man that have served time in jail to get a job over a black man who has degrees. That's privilege.
No, I understand what you're saying, and again, it's the term that I hate.
Okay. Well, we can change up the term.
Yeah.
However,
No,
you do acknowledge that white men who make $1 on a dollar, as opposed to what a black man makes on the dollar, even when we talking about incarceration, when 44% of black men are incarcerated for some of the same crimes that white men get accused of and don't get incarceration, that's white privilege.
I would agree that black men historically have been incarcerated for longer periods of time for the same crimes. I will.
Okay.
I'll agree with you on that.
And you're a lawyer, so you know.
I'm not an attorney. I wish I. No, I'm not an attorney.
I know.
And you're almost a doctor. You're going to be
Yes.
couple while you're doing your dissertation.
Yeah.
Nice.
One more year.
All right. So we're going to we're going to take, this is a good kind of segue. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Usula Radio and the Republican Zone. We'll be back in a minute.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
Because of you, I feel not alone in this world. And you let me know that it only takes one person to make you feel wanted.
Welcome back. You're listening to Usula Radio and the Republican Zone. I'm here with my friend Fareed Abdullah. I'm your host, Drew Murray. So welcome back. So Fareed, we kind of we still got a lot to talk about. So we talked
Yes.
about the shooting and whether or not the police acted correctly, whether they're trained correctly.
Mhm.
A lot of things, and we said before we came on, Fareed's not changing my mind, and I'm definitely not changing Fareed's mind. But one thing that I think we could probably agree on is that Mr. Wallace was failed by the mental health system. Clearly, this man had mental health issues, and I think a lot of people are failed by that system. So
Absolutely.
that's why I said at the beginning, it is tragic. He did have he had some run-ins with the law before even that day, but he also clearly had mental health issues, and we're clearly not, and that's kind of an underlying issue with a lot of problems. I mean, we could go into drug addiction, but also crime. In my opinion, whether it's the city, the Commonwealth, or the federal government, he was failed by the system, and we need to improve our mental health system in the United States. There are too many people walking around who are not getting the help they need, and I don't think we can solve. We're not solving that today, but I think that problem started with the failure of the system to Mr. Wallace and the rest of his family. I mean, there are many victims in that day. Looking directly at his mother, who had to sit there and watch her son get shot and killed, which I can't even imagine.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. When it comes to mental illness here in America, once again, I believe that there's two mental illness groups. One are those who cannot afford treatment, and those who can afford the treatment. Even if we look at the opioid epidemic, we see that now it is a sickness, it's an illness. But during the crack epidemic, it wasn't that. So I believe that for people who live in the inner city, people of color, when it comes to the mental health or the mental illness component, it's disparity, should I say? It's not equality. So you look at little kids, Drew, as an educator. You have kids that are being diagnosed with ADHD, their behaviors and different things of that nature. However, they're not getting the proper counseling. You give them a pill, give them medicine, and that's it. So what happens when they get older? You start to see some of the things that we're seeing today with young men and women in the inner city who are committing certain crimes, and it has to be a root to this. This isn't something that just starts yesterday or today. It leads up to this, and it starts at a young age. And until we get past this is a money thing, so that we're going to medicate them or over-medicate them, we're going to give them the proper counseling.
So when you're comparing the crack epidemic to the opioid, you're saying, yes. and I actually agree with you. You're saying it was almost over-policed.
Absolutely.
And it was because it was more prevalent in the Black community, and
absolutely.
The opioid crisis is more prevalent in the white community, or
yes.
There's more white people who are affected by it. So
yes.
Now, just playing devil's advocate, I'm not even going to tell you which way I think. Could that just be that we've learned over time, because it's about 20, 25 years in between, the height of each, that we learned over time that, there is addiction, and that we should maybe treat addiction, and it is still a crime. I mean, using heroin is still a crime. Did we not just get better at recognizing that, hey, this is, it's not a black or white issue. It is an issue of, we've become better at identifying the underlying issues of addiction.
So I love your
and I'm not telling you which way I feel.
I love how you were able to shift that. However, it is no difference. It's not that people now in the system are, they're learning about, this is a drug problem. It doesn't matter if it's black or white. Mm-hmm. When the the crack epidemic in the 80s, it was designed to affect poor Black and brown communities, which led for the war on drugs by President Ronald Reagan to lock up those same individuals who were allowed to live in these communities or did live in these communities and sell the drugs in these communities. It was a setup to basically destroy the communities. And now, because it's affecting white America, because of the pill, the pills and the heroin, the different things that they're using, now it's the sickness or the illness, but no one's being locked up. If you go to Kensington Avenue, and we all been around there, it's almost legalized to stand on the corners and do drugs. But in the 80s, if there were drug dealers and drug users, they were locked up. That's not happening today. They're not getting arrested. It's almost, we got to have compassion for them. It wasn't any compassion in the 80s when most Black people in the inner city were selling drugs or using the drug. That's my opinion.
Sure.
And I grew up in that era as well.
Sure. And I mostly agree with you. I don't think there was any conscious effort by President Reagan to say we're going to try to take down black communities, but I do think it would have been treated differently if it was, a white
Why you don't
a
think
white
that?
person problem when it comes to crack cocaine, and also I think the people in Kensington who are doing drugs and who are selling drugs, more importantly, who are selling drugs, it is an open market. They should be arrested. I actually think they're, the pendulum has gone too far left. We do need to arrest those people selling the drugs.
But Drew,
yeah.
was it not documented that the CIA infiltrated on the black communities in the 80s to put drugs in those communities? And then a few years later, President Ronald Reagan signed a bill saying war on drugs and really cracking down on the war on drugs, where they were locking people up.
I've never heard that. That doesn't mean it's not. I can't really speak either way on that one.
All
So
right.
yeah, I'm not
Well,
sure.
I mean that is, I mean, those are facts that the CIA was pushing those drugs in the black communities. They were dumping them off, and then the war on drugs came, which I know you know about President Reagan's the bill.
The war on drugs, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, but you just don't believe the conspiracy theory.
No, I can't say. I honestly I never really heard it, and I probably wouldn't believe it. But
I know you wouldn't. I know you wouldn't, because you don't believe that Walter Wallace was killed.
So quick question. So I want to get back on the topic of the police again, and so I have a question. I think I know the answer to this, but do you, as a black man, and do you think black communities in general trust the police? Do you personally trust the police, and do you think, and I think I know this answer, but do you trust the police in general?
I can tell you, as living in a black community, black people in the inner cities do not trust the police. When it comes to me being a black man, I don't trust the police either. However, I know how to not show fear, to make police officers feel as if I need to be afraid of my life from him, or that he's a threat. But everyone doesn't know how to move in that realm.
So you
But
feel like you know how to de-escalate the situation almost.
Absolutely. I know how to do that, but we shouldn't have to feel like, oh my God, if I don't de-escalate, then the police officers are going to do something to me. That shouldn't be, that should not be something that we should feel within our communities, because it is heavily policed by white police officers in the black community.
So and so another question, and I can't answer this, only you can. Would you feel more comfortable if it was the Philadelphia police officers force is actually somewhat diverse? I think there's an argument to be made that it needs to be more diverse. Do you feel more comfortable if it's a black police officer, or do you just don't trust police in general?
No, okay. So it's not that I have a fear. I don't have fear for police officers. I don't trust some of their methods.
Okay.
So I am not in fear of police officers. I have police officers who are black that, that I can have conversations with, but when they are on the job and certain things are happening, it's some of their methods that I don't trust. But I don't have fear of police officers. There are a lot of black men and women who are in fear of police officers because of their tactics.
And so it goes to they're possibly, in your opinion, they're not trained correctly in a lot of situations. When you're saying tactics, are you saying what they are trained to do?
And I believe that a lot of police officers feel, I am going home tonight, and whatever I have to do to make sure that I go home, it's me against them. I am going home. So if I have to arrive at a scene and it's, I'm not coming here to talk. This is what it is. So I believe that in their mind is like, okay, let's just talk about Philadelphia. There's a lot of crime, and we know this. What are we, number 2 in the country for homicides? I know that people have guns that the military have. However, we have whatever gun we have, and it might be 2 or 3 of us going into a situation. instead of me trying to figure out what's going on, I am going to make sure that whatever I have to do to go home, I'm going to go home. Now, we don't have a lot of shootings or killings in the city of Philadelphia from police officers, but we do see where police officers have used excessive force and have killed black men and black women, which, in my opinion, it puts a fear in a lot of people, especially for, black men and black women. We get pulled over by the police officers. The first thing you're thinking is like, listen, I don't have any weapons. Your phone is on. You're making sure that you're recording everything, because at that moment, it could be your last time breathing. So that fear is perpetuated or from the media and from everything that we see from police officers using excessive force.
So I would, the fact that you don't trust police, and I think you would probably say that, there are black communities in Philadelphia and obviously.
So I said I don't trust their methods, some of their methods.
Sure. Okay, but there's a distrust on some level is something that does need to be addressed. And I think the FOP would agree to that. There's nothing wrong, and when we talk about police reform, I don't think there's any police officer who wouldn't say, sure, we should always try to improve what we do. And we can always learn from, looking at our history and what did we do wrong. And I think every police officer and the FOP looks at, what happened either with Mr. Wallace or, the way police are trained in general, and say, let's improve it. Let's be better. Because if nothing else, we need better relations between the black community and maybe other black and brown communities, between those communities and the police. Because if there's a distrust, the police, things can go bad, number one. And number two, it makes it harder for the police to do their job, right? Because if a crime does happen, the police needs the community members to help them solve those crimes, whether it's a violent crime or burglary or anything. And if there's not that trust between the community, or that relationship between the community and police officers, then that's a major problem.
But that's a difference in the police force. You have the street police who do a lot of the wrongdoings, as we saw with Mr. Wallace. He wasn't shot by a detective. He wasn't shot by lieutenants. He was shot by patrol officers. So, of course, when the killings are being done, you don't have the street police officers knocking on the doors. It's more so the detectives that come in. So we already know that crime is going to be here. It's just going to happen. However, police officers are paid professionals from taxpayers, and their job is not to execute, or excuse me, to be the judge and the jury and then the executioner. It is to be a servant of the people. They're coming at times not to serve, a lot of them, because you also have the community relations officers. Those are the ones that are out there with the community. But the police officers that are coming into these communities, they don't know the people don't know who they are. It's a back and forth, and it's a level of disrespect on both sides.
Well, and that's what I'm talking about. We need to build better relationships between the police and the communities. And that means, and I'll be honest, I think that means more police, out of the patrol cars. And that's easy. This is easier said than done. Meaning, I'm not one of those police. You got to walk the beat, because I think then you do get to know the people. And then maybe, in Mr. Wallace's case, if those officers knew the family, and maybe even, who knows, knew Mr. Wallace, because there have been numerous times that they've been out there before, maybe they would have had a better idea on how to handle the situation. Maybe they could have de-escalated it more. So no matter what, I do agree with you. We need a better relationship between all communities in the city of Philadelphia and the police force. There needs to be a trust. The trust that goes both ways, both for the community trust in police officers and for those officers to have trust in the community. Because look, it is a job that the men and women in blue, they leave their house every day, and it's a more dangerous job than you or I do, Fareed. And there is a chance that they're not going to go back, to their families that night. So,
Be a black man, and you'll see how
the-
dangerous that is.
and I understand, and
Just walking outside and not having the right to use deadly force. Police officers, they listen, Drew. They sign on for this.
they do, but they don't sign a death sentence. They sign
Well,
on
I
to
mean,
protect and serve and put their lives at risk. But if someone's coming at them, and we'll disagree with Mr. Wallace, but there are many times that there are situations that it is absolutely life or death, and the police have no other option. And we
Okay.
disagree on Mr. Wallace, but there are those times. And
I agree with you there. There are certain times.
now, what about and this goes to the question of the defunding of the police, and if we're going to do some of these things, if you want all police officers to have non-lethal means, meaning if you want them all to have tasers, if you want them to be trained to de-escalate situations, and I'm not saying you as because I don't even know how you feel about the movement of defunding the police. I completely disagree with it, and one of the reasons I disagree with it because I hear people say we need to defund the police, and this is what we need them to do, and we need to train them to de-escalate, and we need them all to have tasers, and right after they say we need to defund them, they list reasons or things that they need to do that cost money. And so, the same people who are saying to fund the police are saying they should all have tasers, that they should all be trained differently, that they need to be retrained to de-escalate situations. So, what are your feelings about the defund the police movement?
I mean, listen, I do believe that you need police officers. I do also believe that they need to be retrained. I'm not saying that they should not have guns on them. I mean, it just needs to be why they are using. Excuse me, I didn't mean to yell. Why they're using their guns? Like, what gives you the right? And what I mean by saying what gives you the right to use a gun, there has to be certain measures. And I believe that when it comes to non-life threatening situations, even if you are quote unquote afraid, you should not be able to pull your gun out. It just, if everyone is provided with a taser, mace, batons, these are the de-escalation tools that obviously they felt was good enough. If not, they would not have had it, because before the tasers, what they were using, the sticks, and then, the mace or whatever else, I don't know, was pepper spray and mace and then now the tasers. So a taser will stop a person. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen tasers completely just ball a person up. But when it comes to defunding the police officers, I strongly believe that it just needs to be better relations between the community and the police officers. More training for the police officers, whereas they are learning how to truly de-escalate situations such as what they encounter with Mr. Wallace, and not being able to just use their guns because they say, "Oh, I'm afraid for my life."
And all those things, and I guess one of the reasons I am completely against the defunding of the police is because all of those things cost money. And a lot of people say, well, when I say defund the police, I'm not saying get rid of it completely, take away all funds. But I tell people then you're not a good marketing person, because defund means taking away all funding of the police. So it's you better, if you're going to say you need to reallocate or change the way police are trained, then you got to stop using the term defund, because defund means take away all resources and get rid of the police. And in that situation, you have something like what happened in Seattle and CHOP, the police-free zone, or even in the city of Philadelphia, and you and I disagreed on this one too, the encampment, which is right in my neighborhood. I remember you went on video and you were talking to the encampment people, like, I'm with you, and I'm like, Fareed, I'm not. I disagree with you on this.
Disagree with me.
And we're still friends, and that was a police-free zone. And what happened in that police-free zone? 2 stabbings. One was almost fatal. A lot of drug use that is illegal. I mean, it was you could do whatever you want.
Kensington also.
Oh, I agree.
Nobody's talking about that. That's the same thing as the encampment on Kensington.
Oh, and I think and look, we all know
it's worse. It was worse in Kensington.
We all know why Kensington is not being policed. And I don't know if we've ever talked about our our district attorney, Larry Krasner, and your thoughts on him. I don't know if we've ever discussed him, but
No, we haven't.
and anyone who knows me, I'm not a fan of our district attorney. He doesn't, there's a reason why we may have 500 murders this year in the city of
Absolutely.
Philadelphia. And it's
Yeah.
because he doesn't prosecute people. He is giving criminals an idea that he's not going to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. And we already discussed I think people were kind of over incarcerated, and I agree with you on that. But when it comes to violent acts, the district attorney is just turn a blind eye. I mean, and I don't know what do you think about Larry Krasner?
Well, I mean, listen, I don't really want to get into Larry Krasner as a DA, but I know he was a defense attorney,
Mm-hmm.
and that compassionate side that he displayed for his clients, is a lot of the things that are happening within the city when it comes to violent crimes and people being able to walk. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not sure on what the laws are for certain crimes that are being committed. So, as a person, I think Larry Krasner has a heart for people as a person. I do.
Oh, we'll disagree on that one as well, because I don't think there's any bigger. I think when it comes to Larry Krasner, it's about Larry Krasner. There's no bigger fan in this world of Larry Krasner than Larry Krasner. And I say the proof is in the pudding. Look at the increase in violence in our city, and you can't deny that.
That's true.
Since he has taken over. And a lot of people say, well, it's COVID-19. That's why there's more crime, and that's why there's more violent crime. Well,
No,
it was going up way before COVID-19.
Well, there's nothing, there's really nothing going on for young men and women in the inner city. You talk about the jobs, you talk about, Philadelphia is broke. All of the layoffs, and now we're going to another closure. We have no surplus anymore. It's just the city did not save for a rainy day, and this is a problem.
Well, that's because
now
our
we're feeling
mayor.
the ramifications of it.
Our mayor he was spend. That's why I don't know. You sound like a Republican now, Fareed.
No way.
You're starting
No
to
way.
sound like a Republican. You never know.
Listen, I'm definitely about saving for a rainy day, and we have to learn how to budget and like I love the words you said. Instead of defunding, reallocate. I believe that we have to reallocate funding to programs that's going to actually work. And right now, if there's an abundance of crime, we have to start reallocating funding that's going to change the trajectory of what we're seeing right now. And right now, I really don't believe that anyone has a clue on how to change this narrative, because it's every single night, people are getting murdered.
When it comes to crime, I put a lot of that on Larry Krasner, but there's also there's crime that Larry, we can't blame it all on him. And I say that other than Larry Krasner, actually probably the biggest reason that we have crime in any big city, and especially the city of Philadelphia, is because we have poverty, and we have a
Absolutely.
25% rate of poverty, which is the highest of all the largest cities in the
And we're
United
number
States.
6 in the country.
Yeah, and
As far
so
as largest cities.
yeah, what we need, when it comes to fighting poverty, I am a Republican. We need more jobs in the city of Philadelphia. We need better
I
paying
agree.
jobs in the city of Philadelphia. So,
I agree.
but it looks like we're coming up to the end.
Yes.
We might have another show just now that I know what you feel about Larry Krasner. I'm gonna have you back on just so we can.
I didn't say.
we can
All
talk
I said is
about it.
I like Larry Krasner as a person. He has a
Yes.
heart for the people. That's what I said.
No, I know. I'm not changing your words. Don't worry. But we could talk about Larry Krasner for an hour. At least I can. So, but Fareed, you're my
Thank you.
friend. We're,
Thank
we disagreed here. I think we showed people that you can actually have a conversation. And we disagreed the entire time. And again, we knew we weren't changing each other's opinions. But thank you so
Absolutely.
much for coming on my show.
Thank you, Drew.
So you're listening to USLA Radio, the Republican Zone. Have a great afternoon.